picture this. You're in a conversation, and someone says something you strongly, strongly disagree with. And you feel that internal panic, right? Your heart starts racing, palms get sweaty.
Oh, yeah.
Do you speak up and risk, well, everything, it feels like? Or do you stay silent and maybe regret it later? Sound familiar?
It absolutely does. I mean, I've been in countless situations where that internal debate just freezes you for a second, that physical reaction. It's so real.
And that is exactly why we're here today. Welcome to Speak Gaily English. Our mission is to help transform you from someone who maybe avoids disagreement or perhaps accidentally escalates it into someone who's really skilled at diplomatic communication.
Yeah, helping you navigate those tricky waters with, confidence and a bit of grace.
Exactly. I'm your host, exploring communication with you, and I'm joined by our expert, who has a wealth of experience in these nuances.
Thanks. And for you, our listener, just think. How many times have you wished you knew how to put forward a different viewpoint without, sounding rude or starting a full-blown argument? If you're nodding right now, trust me, you are definitely not alone. It's a super common challenge.
It really is. Today, we're going to share the kinds of words, the phrases, the actual strategies that master communicators use. Things that let you express your opinion firmly while, crucially, keeping relationships intact.
And there's a bit of a surprising secret we'll get into. The most persuasive people, they rarely actually use the word disagree.
Ooh, okay, that's intriguing.
It is. It's a fundamental shift in approach. I remember working with this negotiator once. Really high stakes boardroom discussion, very tense, and he managed to subtly guide the conversation. By the end, everyone felt like his opposing ideas were actually their own suggestions. It was quite something to watch.
Wow, that sounds like some kind of communication magic. It makes me think about the human element here. Before we dive into those powerful techniques, let's explore why disagreeing politely feels so hard. What's actually happening in our brains?
Yeah, it's fascinating, really. When someone hits us with an opposing viewpoint, our brain often kind of flags it as a threat, a direct threat. A threat, really?
Yeah, it's rooted in something called cognitive dissonance. Basically, conflicting ideas trigger a stress response, that classic fight or flight. And that's why your heart races, your palms sweat, your brain's gearing up for a conflict, even if it's just verbal.
Wow. Okay, so we're kind of hardwired to see disagreement as dangerous. That explains a lot, actually. So how do some people make it look so effortless then? How do they manage that?
That's where the skill comes in, the mastery. Skilled communicators, they understand their goal isn't really to win the argument. It's shifted.
Right.
Their goal is to build understanding, to build bridges. They've sort of retrained their internal wiring to see disagreement not as conflict, but as an opportunity for connection, for deeper understanding.
That's a really profound way to reframe it. So instead of how do I prove I'm right, it's more like how do I understand where they're coming from and how can I make sure they understand my perspective too?
Exactly. And you can imagine this gets even more complex when you're communicating in a second language, right?
Oh, absolutely. I was just thinking that. Yeah, I mean, you're already using so much mental energy just processing the language itself. Then you layer the stress of a disagreement on top. It's like trying to solve a really tricky puzzle while, juggling.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So having those specific strategies, those phrases ready to go, it's not just helpful, it's pretty much essential in that situation.
That's a critical insight.
Eh.
Okay, let's talk about culture, too.
Sure.
Because how we express disagreement, that can vary wildly, can't it? What's important to know about, say, English-speaking cultures, particularly American culture?
Yeah, that's a key distinction. In many cultures, disagreeing directly, especially with someone in authority, can be seen as quite rude, even disrespectful. But in many English-speaking cultures, and especially I've found in American professional settings, respectful disagreement is often valued. It's seen as a sign of critical thinking, of being engaged. But the key word there is always respectful.
Right. Respectful is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. So it's not just the words, but the whole cultural package. Can you give us a concrete example?
Yeah.
Maybe in English.
Sure. Okay, imagine a business meeting. A colleague proposes a strategy, and you genuinely think it won't work. If you stay totally silent, well, that might come across as you not being engaged or maybe lacking initiative.
Well,
But if you just blurt out, that's a terrible idea, well, obviously that's going to shut things down fast, highly unproductive.
right. So what's the middle ground?
The diplomatic approach is something more like, that's an interesting approach. I wonder if we might also consider, or That's one way to go. Thinking about potential challenges, maybe we could also look at your building, you see.
Yeah.
Introducing an alternative, not just shooting down the original idea.
Ah, I see. It really shifts the dynamic, doesn't it? From confrontation to collaboration. You're expanding the conversation, not negating it. But what makes some people just naturally good at this while others really struggle?
Well, in my experience, it often boils down to mindset and, frankly, practice. Those who really excel at this, they've cultivated what you might call collaborative curiosity.
Collaborative curiosity, I like that.
Yeah. Instead of their internal voice saying, "You're wrong and I need to show you why," it's more like, "Huh, that's an interesting viewpoint. I see it differently. Let me first really try to get where you're coming from, and then I'll share my perspective." It's an exploration together.
That concept, collaborative curiosity, feels incredibly valuable.
Okay, so before we get into the specific phrases and techniques, the what to say, let's talk about the foundations, the how you say it. That must be critical, right?
Oh, absolutely crucial. You've hit on a key point. I mean, our professional experience and broader communication studies back this up, shows that the vast, vast majority of our message isn't even the words.
Right, I've heard stats on this.
Yeah, it's something like 55% body language, 38% tone of voice, and only about 7% is the actual words you choose. 7%.
Wow. That's genuinely staggering when you think about it. Only 7% in the words. That totally reframes how we should approach this, doesn't it? It really does. It means even if you have the perfect phrase, the most diplomatic wording, if your delivery is off, if your tone is aggressive or your body language is closed off, the message will fail.
Right.
Or worse, it'll backfire.
Okay, so let's break down that delivery. What does the ideal tone sound like when you're disagreeing politely?
The sweet spot is what I'd call curious and conversational. Think about the difference. An aggressive tone might sound like, "I don't think that's right." Flat, challenging.
Yeah, very confrontational.
Right. But a curious conversational tone might be more like, that's interesting. My experience with that has actually been a bit different. See how the second one invites discussion? It opens the door instead of slamming it shut.
I can absolutely hear that difference.
Yeah.
One feels like a brick wall, the other like an open door, like you said. Okay, what about body language? What signals should we be sending?
Your body language needs to shout openness and respect, even if your words are offering a different view. So, simple things. Keep your arms uncrossed. Maintain gentle, engaged eye contact. Not staring, but
Yeah.
showing you're listening. Leaning in just slightly can also signal interest. And a more advanced tip I often share is subtly mirroring the other person's posture. Not mimicking like a robot, but just adopting a similar general posture can build this subconscious rapport, this feeling of being on the same page.
That mirroring thing is fascinating. It works on a subconscious level, you think?
Very much so, in my experience. It helps build that connection non-verbally. Now, what about faces? Our faces give away so much, right?
They really do. Sometimes before we even open our mouths.
Exactly. So your face should aim to convey thoughtful consideration, not judgment. Think interested and maybe slightly puzzled rather than shocked and appalled.
Huh. Okay, interested and puzzled. I can picture that.
A slight head tilt can also work well. It signals you're processing what they're saying. And here's one that surprises people. A warm, respectful smile.
A smile while disagreeing. Doesn't that seem dismissive? Or like you're not taking it seriously?
Not if it's the right kind of smile. It's not a big cheesy grin or a smirk. Definitely not. It's more of a soft, genuine smile that basically says, "I value you as a person and I respect you, even though we see this particular issue differently."
Okay, I see.
It's incredibly powerful for maintaining that connection, for disarming potential tension while still holding your ground on the issue.
That makes perfect sense when you put it that way. It's about separating the person from the point of disagreement.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to mental prep. What kind of mindset shifts are crucial before you even walk into a conversation where you think disagreement might happen?
Good question. 3 key things I always advise clients to focus on. First, clarify your intention. Ask yourself, am I going in to win? Or is my goal to understand and be understood? That shifts everything.
That's huge. Win versus understand. Okay, what's second?
Second, actively reframe disagreement in your mind. Remind yourself that disagreement, when it's handled well, can actually strengthen relationships, not weaken them. It builds trust.
Right, shows you can handle tough conversations. And third,
Third, and this one's really powerful, embrace the possibility that you might be wrong. Or at least that you don't have the whole picture.
ooh, That takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Immensely. It makes you more open, less defensive, and frankly more persuasive because you're genuinely exploring, not just defending a fixed position.
That is incredibly
Right.
liberating. Okay, but what about when things get heated? You know, those high-stakes moments when emotions start running high. How do you stay diplomatic then?
Ah, yes. That's where the real skill comes in, isn't it? When emotions flare up yours or theirs, the absolute best thing I've found is what I call the pause and breathe technique.
Simple but effective.
Deceptively simple, incredibly effective. Literally, just take a moment, pause, take a quiet, deep breath. And in that space, ask yourself internally, what outcome do I truly want from this conversation right now?
Mm.
More often than not, the answer isn't to prove them wrong at all costs. It's usually something like to be heard, or to find some common ground, or to solve the problem. That pause gives you space to choose a more productive response.
That's such a practical tool. Just
Yeah.
create a little space. Speaking of choosing responses, are there specific words or phrases, sort of linguistic traps, we should actively try to avoid?
Oh, definitely. Big trap words are absolutes. Always, never, everyone, no one. They just tend to escalate things, make people defensive because they're rarely 100% true.
Right, they invite counterexamples.
Exactly. And the biggest culprit, the word I coach people on the most, is but.
But. Why but? It seems so common.
It is common, but think about what it does. It essentially negates or dismisses everything that came before it. You say, I understand your point, but, and the other person instantly braces for the counterargument, feeling like their point wasn't really heard or valued.
Ah, I see that now. So what's the alternative?
Try replacing but with and. Instead of, I understand your point, but, try, I understand your point, and I also think, and my experience has been, see how and feels more additive. It builds on the conversation, acknowledges their point, and adds yours rather than setting up opposition.
That and versus but shift feels like a total game changer. Just that one word. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's get into the real toolkit, the specific phrases and techniques. What's a reliable formula, maybe a structure, for disagreeing politely that you've found really works?
My absolute go-to, the one I teach most often because it's so effective and relatively easy to learn, is a 3-step formula. Acknowledge, bridge, and express.
Okay, acknowledge, bridge, express. Break that down for us.
Sure. First, you acknowledge their viewpoint. You genuinely show them you've heard and understood what they said. This builds rapport immediately.
Got it, acknowledge.
Second, you bridge to your own perspective. You use a connecting phrase that smoothly transitions from their point to yours without creating a hard stop.
Okay, bridge, like the and we just talked about.
Exactly like that, or similar transition words. And third, you express your different viewpoint clearly, but always diplomatically, using the right tone and phrasing we discussed. Acknowledge, bridge, express.
That framework sounds really clear and actionable. Could you walk us through it with a concrete example? Let's use a common one, maybe about working from home.
Perfect. Okay, imagine someone says, pretty definitively, working from home simply makes people lazy. A common opinion, right?
Yeah, you hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we apply the formula?
Right, so step 1, acknowledge. You could say something like, I can see why you might think that, or I understand that concern. You're showing you get their perspective.
Okay, acknowledged. Step 2.
Step 2, bridge. Use a transition, maybe at the same time, or my experience has been a bit different, or what I have found is...
Clicking.
Step 3, express. Now you state your view diplomatically. I've personally found that when I work from home, I'm often more productive because there are fewer office distractions. Or I've seen team productivity actually go up with the flexibility.
Ah, putting it all together.
Uh,
I can see why you might think that. My experience has been a bit different, though. I've personally found I'm often more productive at home. That flows really well.
doesn't it? You're not attacking their statement about laziness. You're acknowledging their view might exist, bridging smoothly, and then simply sharing your different experience or perspective. It's much less confrontational.
That's incredibly smooth.
Yep.
Okay, let's stock our toolkit. What are some other good, versatile acknowledgement phrases we can use? Ones that show respect, even if we don't agree at all.
Yeah, having a few of these ready is key. You could use, that's an interesting perspective, or I can understand why you'd feel that way, or you make a valid point there.
Yeah.
Even just, I see where you're coming from, or maybe a slightly more neutral one. That's certainly one way to look at it. These all signal active listening and respect, which is crucial.
Those are fantastic,
Yeah.
invaluable. Okay, now for the bridge phrases. What are some smooth ways to make that transition from their point to yours without sounding like you're about to drop a bomb?
Right. The transition needs to be smooth. These are really useful. At the same time, I've noticed, or my experience has been slightly different, or posing a question, I wonder if there's another angle to consider.
Ooh, I like the question one.
Yeah, it's collaborative, or simply what I've found is, or from my perspective, these phrases connect the ideas gently rather than setting up a sharp contrast.
This is great, building a real phrase bank here. But what about a slightly trickier situation? What if someone says something that's just factually incorrect? How do you correct misinformation without making them feel stupid or attacked?
Ah, yes, the factual correction. This needs a delicate touch. The absolute key is to focus on the information, not on the person or their intelligence.
Okay, information, not person. How does that sound in practice?
So instead of a blunt, you're wrong about that, which immediately puts someone on the defensive, try something much softer, focused on the data, like, I think there might be some updated information on that. Or, the latest research I came across actually suggests something different.
Got it.
Or even, my understanding was slightly different. I thought I read recently that you're introducing new information as the focus, not their error.
That feels much gentler, much more collaborative.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears again.
Yeah.
What about when someone isn't just wrong, but maybe being unreasonable or highly emotional? How do you disagree with someone who might not be coming from a purely rational place at that moment?
Yeah, this requires a good dose of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
When emotions are high, the first step, counterintuitively perhaps, is often to acknowledge the emotion itself, not just the content.
Acknowledge the emotion first.
Yeah, something like, I can see this is really important to you, or I hear how frustrated you are about this. Validating their feeling can sometimes lower the emotional temperature.
Okay, that makes sense. Then what?
Then, once you've acknowledged the emotion, gently try to redirect the conversation back towards facts or shared goals or common ground. Like, given how strongly we both feel, let's focus on what outcome we both want to achieve here. And sometimes, honestly, if someone is extremely emotional or unreasonable, the best strategy might simply be to agree to disagree for the moment. You can say, it seems like we see this very differently right now, and maybe that's okay. Perhaps we could revisit it later.
Acknowledging the emotion first. That feels like a really powerful de-escalation technique. Okay, let's get really specific now with different situations. How would you tailor your approach if you need to disagree with, say, your boss at work? That feels high stakes.
Absolutely. With authority figures, diplomacy is paramount. You want to position yourself as a thoughtful collaborator, not a challenger. So instead of direct disagreement, try phrasing things as questions or additional considerations.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, say your boss proposes a new strategy. You could say, that's an interesting strategy. I wonder if we've also considered the potential challenges with implementation. Or, I appreciate the direction you're thinking. Building on that, what if we also looked at it from the customer's perspective to make sure we cover that base?
So you're adding value, offering help, framing it as enhancing their idea, not tearing it down. Very smart.
Exactly. It shows respect for their position while still introducing your concerns or alternative ideas.
Okay, what about the opposite end? Disagreeing with friends in a social setting, much lower stakes, but you still want to keep the friendship.
Right. With friends, you can definitely be more casual, but the respect still needs to be there. You might use softer, more informal language. Things like, I'm not sure I see it quite that way, or really, that hasn't been my experience at all. Or even a playful, interesting, I've always kind of thought. The key is maintaining warmth while expressing your different view.
Yeah, keeping that friendly vibe. Okay, the modern minefield. Online interactions. Disagreements on social media, forums, emails, they can get nasty fast. Any specific tips for digital disagreement?
Oh boy, online. Yeah, it's uniquely tricky because you lose all those vital nonverbal cues, tone, body language, facial expression. They're just gone.
Totally. It's so easy to misinterpret text.
Exactly. So my personal rule of thumb online is pretty simple. If you wouldn't say it directly to the person's face in person, then do not type it. Full stop.
Good rule. What phrases work well online?
Keep it brief and respectful. Simple phrases like, I respectfully disagree, or I see it differently personally can work. But honestly, sometimes the most effective and sanity-preserving response online is simply no response at all. Just scroll on by.
So true. Choosing not to engage can be the smartest move. Okay, one more common scenario. Disagreeing within a group. That feels extra daunting, disagreeing with multiple people at once.
Yeah, group dynamics add another layer of complexity. The key here is to try and position yourself not as opposing the group, but as adding to the collective discussion.
How do you do that?
Use framing language, for example. This has all been really valuable input. I'd just like to add another perspective for us to consider. Or building on what everyone's shared, which is great, what if we also thought about? You're framing your contribution as collaborative, as enriching the conversation the group is already having.
I love that positioning as adding, not opposing. These strategies are also practical. But what happens when you do everything right? You use the right tone, the right phrases, the acknowledge, bridge, express, and the other person still gets defensive or angry.
Yeah, that can definitely happen, and it's crucial to remember in that moment. It's likely not your fault. You can only control your side of the interaction.
Right. So what do you do then?
You have a couple of options. You could try to gently address the misunderstanding. I get the sense maybe I didn't express myself clearly, or perhaps we're misunderstanding each other. Could we maybe pause and try starting that part over?
Okay. Offering a reset.
Yeah. Or if it feels too heated or unproductive, you might need to make what I call a tactical retreat. Something like, it seems like this is a really sensitive topic for both of us right now. Perhaps it would be better if we took a break and maybe revisited it later when we're both feeling calmer. Protecting the relationship might mean pausing the conversation.
That tactical retreat advice sounds incredibly wise sometimes. Okay, let's push this further. Let's talk about some more advanced techniques. What separates someone who's just good at diplomatic disagreement from someone who's truly great at it?
Ooh, good question. I think the truly great ones, the masters, often employ what I call the art of the question.
The art of the question. Tell me more.
Instead of directly stating their disagreement or offering their alternative, they ask thoughtful, open-ended questions. Questions that are carefully designed to subtly guide the other person to see potential flaws or limitations in their own logic, or to consider alternatives themselves.
So they're leading the person to their own conclusion almost.
Exactly. It's incredibly powerful because, as we know, people are always more convinced by conclusions they feel they reach themselves rather than ones forced upon them.
That sounds almost Socratic in a way. Can you give an example of how that might work?
Sure. Let's go back to the budget cut idea. Say a colleague proposes, we should cut the marketing budget significantly to save costs. Instead of saying, no, that'll hurt sales, which is a direct disagreement,
Right.
you could ask questions like, that's an interesting idea for cost saving. How do you foresee that impacting our customer acquisition efforts over the next couple of quarters? Or what potential risks or downstream effects on long-term revenue growth should we maybe consider if we make that cut?
Wow. You're not disagreeing at all directly. You're just prompting them to think through the consequences. That's brilliant.
It facilitates deeper thought, exactly. Another advanced technique I find really useful is agreeing with the principle while disagreeing with the specific application.
Okay, what does that look like?
It means finding some common ground, some shared value or goal you can genuinely agree on before suggesting a different way to achieve it. For example, I absolutely agree with you that we need to be more cost-conscious right now. That's critical. I just wonder if maybe cutting the marketing budget is the most effective way, or if there might be other areas where we could find savings that wouldn't potentially impact our growth engine quite so directly.
So you're saying, yes, I agree with the goal,
Yeah.
cost consciousness, and let's think about the method. That builds alignment first.
Precisely. It finds that common ground, which makes the disagreement feel less like opposition and more like collaborative problem solving.
That's a really sophisticated approach.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into cultural nuances again. We touched on American culture, but how might polite disagreement look different across other English-speaking cultures, say British versus Australian?
Oh, it's definitely varied, even within English-speaking countries. As we said, Americans tend to lean more direct, valuing straightforward, though respectful, disagreement, especially in business. British culture, in my observation, often employs more understatement and indirectness. Instead of I disagree, you might hear something like, I'm not entirely convinced that's the best way forward, or I have some slight reservations about that. It's softer.
Okay, more coded language, perhaps. What about Australians?
Australians, I've often found, might use humor more readily to soften a disagreement, to keep things light, even when views differ. And Canadians sometimes lean towards more apologetic language, almost framing the disagreement as an apology. Sorry, but I just think differently on this one.
Those subtle differences are fascinating and really important to be aware of. So what's your advice for someone who's interacting internationally and isn't sure which cultural style to use? How do they navigate that?
Great question. My best advice is When in doubt, always err on the side of politeness and perhaps slight indirectness initially. Observe the other person carefully. How direct are they being? What kind of language are they using? Then you can gently adjust your style to mirror theirs more closely if it feels appropriate. It's always much easier to become a bit more direct if the situation calls for it than it is to try and backtrack after you've been perceived as overly blunt or rude.
That's excellent practical advice. Start polite, observe, then adapt.
Hmm.
Okay, what about other differences? Generational ones. Do older and younger people tend to have different expectations around disagreement?
Yes, I think there are definitely some general tendencies there. Older generations, perhaps, might expect a slightly more formal style of politeness, maybe using phrases like, with all due respect, I see it differently.
Okay, more formal markers.
Whereas younger generations might be more comfortable with a more casual, direct approach, something like, yeah, I hear you, but I actually think, or, I'm not sure about that. But again, the absolute key is always to read your specific audience and adapt to them, not just rely on a generational stereotype.
Right, audience awareness is key. Now, a potentially sensitive area. Gender. Are there observable general patterns in how men and women might approach disagreement differently in, say, American or British cultures?
Yeah, this is definitely sensitive territory, and it's crucial to avoid stereotypes because individual personality trumps everything. However, some broad observational studies and common experiences sometimes suggest general patterns.
Okay, with that caveat in mind.
Women, on average, might tend to use slightly more collaborative or inclusive language when disagreeing, maybe phrasing things as questions or suggestions. What if we thought about it this way? Or have we considered this alternative?
Right, more consensus building perhaps.
Perhaps. Whereas men, again, on average, might sometimes lean towards slightly more direct statements of disagreement. I think we should do this instead, or my view is different. But honestly, I can't stress this enough. Focus on the individual in front of you, their specific style, their personality. Don't assume based on gender.
That's a really important reminder. Treat everyone as an individual.
Okay, let's talk power dynamics. This is crucial. How do you respectfully disagree with someone who holds significantly more power than you? A boss, a professor, a major client.
Ah, yes. Navigating power dynamics requires extra care and deference. The strategy I strongly advise here is using permission-seeking phrases before you offer your differing view.
Permission seeking. Like asking if it's okay to disagree.
Essentially, yes. It softens the approach considerably. You might say something like, would it be all right if I offered a slightly different perspective on that? Or may I share a different viewpoint I've been considering? Or even, I'd like to respectfully offer another angle, if that's okay.
Ah, I see. That explicitly acknowledges their authority and asks for leave to present an alternative. That feels very respectful.
Exactly. It shows you respect their position, which makes them much more likely to be open to hearing what you have to say. That's a really smart approach. Okay, flip side. What about when you are the one with more power? How do you disagree with, say, your direct reports or students without completely shutting them down or making them afraid to speak up again?
Equally important, when you're in the position of power, you have to remember your disagreement carries much more weight. It can feel like a final judgment. So you need to be even gentler, more encouraging.
Softer, more encouraging. How?
Instead of just stating your disagreement, try drawing them out, showing you value their input even if you see flaws. Phrases like, that's an interesting idea. Help me understand a bit more about how you see that working in practice. Or, I appreciate you bringing that up and thinking creatively. Let me share some additional factors we might also need to consider. Your goal is to encourage their thinking and participation while still guiding the direction or correcting misunderstandings gently.
It's about fostering that psychological safety, isn't it? So they'll keep bringing ideas forward.
Precisely. You want to disagree in a way that still encourages future contributions.
These power dynamic strategies are incredibly valuable on both sides. Okay, I think we're ready to really put this all together now. Let's walk through some quick, real-world scenarios. And for you listening, think about how you might handle these using the techniques we've discussed.
Great idea. Let's do it. Okay, scenario one. You're in a team meeting. A colleague proposes a project timeline that, from your experience is just wildly unrealistic. What do you say?
Okay, thinking. Acknowledge, bridge, express. Maybe something like, okay, that's definitely an ambitious timeline, and I really appreciate the urgency you're bringing to this project. Acknowledge. At the same time, I'm wondering if we fully factored in the typical time needed for, say, client feedback loops and potential revisions. Bridge with a question. In my experience on similar projects, those steps often require a little more breathing room than we might have here. Express with experience. How's that?
That is excellent. Textbook execution. You acknowledged the positive intent, ambition, urgency. You bridged smoothly with a question focused on specific potential issues, and you expressed your concern diplomatically, grounding it in your own experience. Perfect.
Phew. Okay, good. Let's try another one. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
A social situation, maybe a dinner party.
Mhm.
Someone makes a political statement that you strongly disagree with. Politics. Always tricky.
Very tricky, highly divisive potential. Okay, how would I handle that? I might go for something like, that's certainly one perspective on it, acknowledge neutrally. I've actually been reading some different analyses recently that have given me pause, making me think about it from another angle. Bridge, hinting at other info. What sources or experiences have you found most influential in shaping your thinking on this? Express curiosity, pivot to dialogue.
Oh, that's smooth. You didn't attack their view at all. You acknowledged it as a perspective, subtly signaled you have different information, and then turned it into a question about their reasoning. You're opening dialogue, not starting a fight.
Exactly. Trying to shift from debate to dialogue, showing curiosity while indicating a different stance exists. Okay, what about family? These can be the most challenging because of all the history and emotion involved.
Oh, yeah. Let's say a parent is criticizing your career choice, maybe out of concern, but it feels like criticism.
Right. Deep breath first. Then maybe, Mom, Dad, I know you're saying this because you're concerned about my future, and honestly, I truly appreciate how much you care. Acknowledge the positive intention emotion. And I'd really love to share more about why this path feels so right for me right now. Now, Bridge. Maybe we could talk more about your specific worries, too, so I understand them better. Express desire for dialogue, address their concerns.
That feels really empathetic. You're validating their love and concern first, which might disarm them, before creating space to explain your choice and hear their specific fears. Very relationship-focused.
That's the goal in family situations, usually. Okay, how about customer service? You need to disagree with a company policy or maybe a decision they've made about your account.
Right, you want a specific outcome here. I'd probably try. Okay, I understand. That's the standard policy, and I appreciate you explaining it clearly. Acknowledge. At the same time, this particular situation feels a bit unique, and I'm really hoping we can find a solution that works out. Bridge. Is there perhaps a supervisor or manager available who might have a bit more flexibility to look at this specific case? Express need. Propose alternative path.
Excellent. You're not arguing about the policy itself, which the frontline person probably can't change anyway. You're acknowledging it, explaining your situation's context, and politely seeking someone with potentially more authority to find an exception or alternative. Much more effective than just getting angry.
Exactly. Okay, maybe one or two more. Online dating or social apps. Disagreeing with someone you're just getting to know romantically or as a friend, that feels important for compatibility.
Crucial, actually. How someone handles disagreement early on tells you a lot. I'd suggest something gentle and curious. Huh, that's interesting. I've never really thought about it quite like that before. Acknowledge novelty. My perspective on that tends to be a little different, actually. Bridge gently. Could you tell me a bit more about how you arrived at that viewpoint? I'm curious. Express difference, invite more conversation.
Nice. It's open, non-judgmental, clearly states a difference exists, but focuses on understanding their reasoning. Good for feeling out compatibility.
Precisely. Okay, last one, maybe a parent-teacher conference. You need to disagree with something the teacher is saying about your child. Delicate situation.
Very delicate. You need that partnership. Okay, I'd try. Thank you so much for sharing your observations. I really appreciate all you're doing for Child's Name. Acknowledge effort, expertise. What I've been observing at home has been a little bit different, actually. Bridge. I'm wondering if maybe we could put our heads together and share perspectives to figure out what might be going on and how we can best support them. Express difference, propose collaboration.
Perfect. Positioning yourselves as partners, pooling observations, focusing on the shared goal of the child's well-being. That collaborative frame is key with teachers.
These scenarios are incredibly helpful for seeing it in action. But let's revisit that point. What if you do all this, you're diplomatic, collaborative,
Yeah.
and the other person still gets upset or defensive? How do you handle that reaction?
Right. And again, it will happen sometimes. People react based on their own stuff, not just your delivery. When it happens, you can gently acknowledge their feeling without taking blame. I can see this is upsetting, and please know that wasn't my intention at all.
Okay.
And then often suggesting that pause is the best move. Perhaps it might be best if we took a short break from this topic and maybe came back to it later when things feel a bit calmer. Sometimes the kindest and most productive response for the relationship is a temporary, graceful disengagement.
That's really wise advice. Acknowledge the feeling, state non-intent, suggest a pause. Okay, as we start to wrap up this really comprehensive guide, I want to make sure you, our listener, have a clear action plan. If someone wants to start improving this skill today, what are the top, say, 3 things they should focus on first?
Okay, top 3 takeaways. First, really work on mastering your mindset. Actively reframe disagreement. Remember, handled skillfully, it can strengthen relationships, not break them. That internal shift is foundational.
Mindset first. Got it. Second.
Second, consciously and diligently practice that acknowledge, bridge, express formula. Say it out loud, use it in low-stakes situations, write it out, practice until it starts to feel more natural and automatic.
Practice the formula.
Okay.
And third,
Third, pay meticulous attention to your delivery, your tone of voice, and your body language. Remember those stats. Nonverbals convey the vast majority of your message. Aim for that curious and conversational tone and open, respectful body language.
perfect. Mindset, formula, delivery. And I'd add, start practicing this in low-stakes situations. Don't wait for a huge, high-pressure conflict. Try it out when disagreeing about a movie with a friend or a minor point with family. Build the muscle gradually.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Start small, build confidence, and always remember, the ultimate goal here isn't really about winning arguments. It's about maintaining authentic connections, building understanding, and being able to express yourself clearly and respectfully.
Yeah.
Honestly, when you master polite disagreement, you become someone people actually want to engage with, even on tough topics, because they trust you'll handle it with grace and respect. That's a powerful place to be.
That's a really profound and motivating thought. Any final words of wisdom for our listener who might still feel a bit nervous about trying these techniques out?
Just this. Don't aim for perfection right away. Nobody gets this perfect every single time. Even seasoned communicators are always learning and refining. Be patient with yourself. Start small, notice what works, notice what doesn't, adjust. View every conversation, even the tricky ones, as an opportunity to practice and learn. The very fact that you're listening and actively wanting to improve this skill already puts you way ahead.
That's such valuable, reassuring advice. And to you, our listener, remember that mastering this skill, disagreeing politely, it isn't just about smoothing over conflicts. It's fundamentally about fostering deeper, more authentic relationships and creating environments where different viewpoints can actually coexist safely and productively.
Precisely. I mean, when you can disagree without being disagreeable, you open up vital space. Space for genuine dialogue, for real learning, for significant growth both personally and professionally. These skills truly ripple out and serve you profoundly in pretty much every single area of your life, from work meetings to family dinners.
If Speak Daily English helped you feel more confident today about expressing disagreement politely, please do subscribe, leave us a review, we love reading them, and maybe share this with a friend or colleague who you think could benefit from these diplomatic communication skills.
Yeah, and we really encourage you. Pick just one technique we discussed today, maybe and instead of but, or the acknowledge, bridge, express formula, and consciously try it out this week. See what happens. Reflect on the outcome. We genuinely love to hear about your polite disagreement wins if you want to share in the comments.
Thank you so much for joining us on Speak Daily English. Until next time, remember you absolutely can stand firm in your beliefs and your perspective while still being kind, curious, and deeply respectful. The world truly needs more people who can bridge divides, not deepen them.
Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep building those bridges one conversation at a time. We'll speak with you next time.